You're listening to the Mobcast Network.
Yeah.
X-Men was better anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Bruce and I we grew up we got in the business at the same time, so we both started at Filmation, so kind of had a light rivalry. I mean, I did work with him on Batman. I did several episodes with Bruce Timm, so I got a chance to play with Batman in addition to the X-Men.
And it's kind of funny looking to what questions, as we get, but it kind of a little fire under us. They started about a year earlier developing it, and so they had a lot of stuff. That's how Larry was able to do a bunch of storyboards for them before we actually even started on X-Men. And we saw how beautiful their art is looking. We said, oh my God, you can't compete with that. So, okay, we're going to crank up the pace here, crank up the drama. And the production people literally made a decision. Batman has so many shots and scenes in a 22-minute episode. We're going to do about 75% more, almost double. So that's why when you watch the pace of something, Batman is something people look at, but it's kind of slow, as our executives call it, slow jazz. And we're cool jazz.
Cool jazz.
We were a garage band. You know?
Right.
and so that was it's a creative decision prompted by the fact that we knew we'd be next to each other, that we'd be siblings, and we wanted to distinguish ourselves and go to our strengths.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get this thing started. Before we do jump into the panel, I want to let you guys know that the reason why these things exist is so that you have an opportunity to talk with these filmmakers and the people responsible for all of these projects that we love. So as we get this thing started, y'all take an opportunity to come up with some really good questions. I'm sure they've got all sorts of insight that they would love to share with you guys.
Yeah.
Obviously, the exit would be the entrance where you guys came in. If anybody needs to step out, the restrooms are going to be immediate right, and then again, another right. It'll take you straight to them. If you need to answer your cell phones or anything, just please be considerate, and when you step out, try to be discreet. Make sure your cell phone ringers are turned off. And basically the way that this is going to go is we've got a special surprise for you guys when we get started, and then I'm going to just kind of talk with them for a couple of minutes and turn this over to you guys for an opportunity to ask questions. We got any 90s kids in the house? Me too. Do we have any X-Men fans in the house? Then you're in the right place.
Yeah.
Plenty of room. Okay.
Hope that everybody's enjoying your Pensacon so far. Is there anybody this is your first year here? Welcome. Glad to have you. Hope you're enjoying yourselves.
Yeah, that's great.
Amazing food so far.
Oh, yeah.
Pensacola, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
We made it to Fish House last night.
Yeah.
Just the Harry Potter theme was spectacular. But the food was
The food was
amazing.
excellent, yeah.
Good. Yeah, that Gulf seafood.
Yes.
It doesn't get much better.
Yes. Nice and fresh.
All right, and it looks like we are about due to go ahead and get started. Let's see if I can kill the lights real quick.
Okay, we'll input.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. Just before we even start talking, what do we all want to see with the beginning? It's this.
Gives me All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's make some noise and say hello to art director Larry Houston. We've got story editor Julia Lewald. And then showrunner Eric Lewald. And you guys do know them from X-Men, but they collectively have worked on so many of the iconic children's programming and animated series that we watched growing up. I mean, from G.I. Joe, Captain Planet, Johnny Quest, Chip and Dale, Tailspin, Darkwing Duck, Gummy Bears, Beetlejuice, and then I ran out of room on my paper to continue writing. You guys have so many credits, and I really appreciate you guys taking a minute to talk with us today.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, we enjoyed being here.
Very good.
We can do better.
I was going to say, I think we can do that. Good job, you guys.
Okay, so before we start, it's the juggernaut.
Hey, keep it there!
So, in that case, before we start getting into questions and talking about it, we've got a little bit of a little PowerPoint here that with a little bit of the history of what it was like for us and wake up in 1992 and what we were going to be doing the next time show. Okay, we're hearing some people. So anyway, just a point. If you all don't remember, if you were too young or it's been a while, there were no Marvel movies back in 1992. There was the internet had just started, and what was done with Marvel on TV was not always very successful. People in Hollywood just didn't seem to get comics very well.
Or superheroes at that time.
And there's a one person, Margaret Lesh, who for 8 years worked at Marvel Productions, and she said, X-Men's the best property in all of children's literature. I'm going to push to get this on the air, and every single network turned it down and said, no, there's a tiny audience out there. You know, it's the comic book geeks, you know. We need 10 times that many people. Never worked. So when she, after 8 years of frustration, she finally got a network of her own. Fox was started. She and her right-hand man, her executioner, Sidney Island over there with the cheese on his head. Yeah. They said, okay, we're going to make X-Men. Her advertisers didn't believe in the show. The network besides them, didn't believe in the show. They said, we're doing this and we'll lay our jobs on the line for it. First thing they did was they hired their creative art staff, which was Bill Mingo, an old friend of Larry's, and Larry. So those two guys are responsible for how the show looks and feels, and all just the fact that there's never been anything more like a comic book. You know, these comic book guys made it real.
And we were all old comic book fanboys.
Right. And on the writing side, Margaret and Sidney hired me and a college buddy of mine from Knoxville, Mark Edens, and we worked with them a couple of the shows, and so they decided we were like heroic storytelling. We might fit better than other people. Because to be honest, we didn't know the X-Men very well. We were hunters. We had to learn it fast. But I think we just like the way we tell stories. Well, after nobody believing in the show and us being let go when we were done with our work because they thought it would only run one season, lo and behold, it became the biggest hit in kids' TV and took spots from being a distant fourth network to the #1 network in 6 weeks. And just stayed that way and played all over the world. It's so weird. Everywhere we go, we were just in Singapore, and the Malaysian TSA agents came up to us and said, X-Men. Everybody knows the show, and that we give credit to the Fox for getting it out there, but we also feel like we're part of something special.
Yeah.
And personally, we feel a great deal. You know, why did it work? Well, this guy, Len Wein, who's a dear friend of ours, and who wrote for 5 of the episodes, he gave X-Men Rebirth. If you all know the history, it played in the 60s. It didn't do so well. It was a bunch of teenagers, basically from New York in blue suits, who were mutants, and so the basic core was set. But that failed, and about in 1975, Len, who was the top guy there at Marvel, as far as I was concerned, was asked, reinvent them. And so he said, and reinvent them internationally. Because some accountant had found some numbers saying that the old issues were selling overseas. So they said, get a Canadian, get a German, get a Russian, so the reason it's an international team of X-Men was that Len Wein was given the direction by an accountant to make them international. And
The one time the accountant came through.
So we have that man to thank for the wonderful, Storm is is Africa. All the incredible range of our cast comes from the fact that that guy made that one statement. And again, why we felt it was successful was we respected the books that the stories were coming from, and the stories were referring to, and we think it was part of a tradition that led in. It was a bridge to now the movies that we all enjoy. And so you can see there's one that, if you'll notice in the middle drawing there, it doesn't say Days of Future Past, it says Future Tense. When we were starting to write it, we weren't sure if we were going to be close enough to the story or if Marvel would be comfortable with what our version of it. They ended up being, so we kept the Days of Future Past, but when the storyboard was drawn for Larry, the working title was Future Tense, with Bishop there being a time traveler. The other thing, the reason we think X-Men was so different is that we treated them as adult characters, which they were, and pretty much a lot of that Saturday morning before that was kind of dumbed down for bigger and younger. And we just said, no, little kids will watch up. Older kids and adults won't watch down. We're going to make this about adults, which is what they are. And then Larry. So there you go. This is a time when Marvel was very restrictive. They were a small company. They didn't let us use anybody but the X-Men that we were used for. And Larry can tell you how he got in trouble trying to use Spider-Man and what he did about it.
Yeah, there was a time when one of the things I wanted to do with the show was to add little Easter eggs throughout the series that I knew would be of interest to someone who's a fan of the show. And for me, I would add the Easter eggs only when it didn't interfere with the story that these guys were writing. And so I had a scene of, I wanted to put Spider-Man hanging upside down in a building as the X-Men was doing something else. And when I submitted the model through, it got disapproved. And I was going, Spider-Man was on the same network, but they wouldn't give me a reason. So I said, okay. The next script I have, I think it was Genosha, where all the mutants would have these collars on and stuff. And the writer wrote Mutant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I said, okay, cool. I brought my comic books into work. I said, make this the Blob, make this Mystique, make this, the Pyro, the different characters. But it kept the original names, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Submitted it to, the networks. I didn't hear a word. I went, okay, now I know how to do it. And so from that point forward, like you see, that was a Norse mutant for Thor. I don't know what I wrote something for Strange. I forgot what it was, but everybody was a mutant. Like even the Watcher was a mutant on the Observer on the moon.
Alien Observer.
Yeah. Deadpool's just a nightmare image, number 4 or something like that. And I did get a chance to sneak Spider-Man into a shot of the Dark Phoenix because the world's coming to an end, and I wanted to get him back into the show. So I did a shot of like a chimney, and you see the shadow of Spider-Man land, and then you see his hand go, shooting out the webbing. And it was called Mutant Hand Number 3. And that's how I finally got him into the show. The next shot was like a piece of debris, and it saves a lady from getting hit. And I added I think Alpha Flight and some Iron Man or War Machine or something like that. War Machine. So I added all these other cameos into the show to try and show that the world's come to an end and all of these characters are getting involved. So.
Yeah. Appearance of Black Panther too.
Oh yeah. They had a show called Sanctuary, where Magneto was picking up all these mutants around the world, and he went to Africa to get some other characters. I went, oh, okay, cool. I'll just slip in Black Panther as he's landing and taking off, and he's called out mutant number 3 or 4 or something. But that's how I got him. That's how I got these cameos into the show, because once I figured out how the system worked, it's like, okay, I'm not going to ask permission anymore. I'm just going to do it. And I had a gut feeling as to what was a good show, and I just wanted to keep running with it and give something back to the fans who know the material. That if they see a cameo of a character they like, it generates excitement and interest in the show, so that next week you'd be wondering, well, what other characters are going to show up in the middle of the show that you could spot.
And also, if you were watching the show when it first came out and you spotted one of these characters, you couldn't run on the internet and say, "Oh, was that on the air?"
Yeah.
Like, wait, did you just see that? Unless your family was letting you tape it.
Yeah.
You couldn't even play it back to then go, "Wait a second, did I just see?" So it became quite the buzz among fans who were in the know, and then fans who weren't in the know were getting curious who this universe included.
It was when I was growing up watching the shows. Reading the comic books. Marvel Comics were under the distribution was being done by DC Comics, and so Stan only had like 8 titles he could put books out on, because DC was keeping them locked down. And so Stan, in order to cross promote the characters, you'd be watching Spider-Man, and then you'd have a panel where Thor would go through the scene, and at the bottom would be, if you want to see where Thor is going, pick up issue such and such, And so he was basically using something like to cross-promote the books to try and get more sales. But what he accidentally created was the connected universe that we all know. And so for me, that generated excitement for me when I was a kid. And so I just kept that tradition going, and I put it into the X-Men.
And so just finally, this is the last slide on this one. We really think that in the end, this is everybody that loved Charles Xavier watching him go off into space as he's dying. That it was just a family, a dysfunctional and warring family, but that really had each other's backs and really loved each other. That had a challenge each week, and that's why the show survives so well, because the show's about loners and they work fine, but there was just something about all these people being thrown together and having to acknowledge that they were all part of something larger that we think is very special.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, if you haven't heard already, if you haven't seen the books up here, we do have about a year ago, I finished the book. I interviewed Larry and like 8 or 9 artists, a dozen writers, the whole cast, the executives, production people, and wrote a history of the show. And so if you like some of the stories we're telling here, there are hundreds of them in the book.
Yeah.
And there's images from all the storyboards and comments on every episode. And so we're down on the 3rd floor if you all haven't been by yet, and we got plenty of them.
Yeah.
As we wrap up here, that's where we're going to be heading in after this. And I think we're at 08 and you're at 07. North on North.
We're Artist Alley North. That's what I remember. But the one thing that is in the book that you should know about is that there were several, and he cataloged it because I remember pieces and other people remember pieces of the beginning, but there were like 3 or 4 times in just the genesis of the series before you guys saw anything that we had all these creative battles that almost killed the show before you guys even saw 1 foot of film, that we had to fight to make sure the show was consistent with the vision that we were trying to put forth. And so we had to fight for all the stuff that you guys saw. But once we had the first season and it was successful, they all backed off.
Success does that sometimes.
There's like 6 or 7 major crises in the book. Any one of them would have just sunk the show.
Yeah.
And like either say Scooby-Dooish voices, which was a choice, or changing the design completely, or changing the stories so that they were younger and less dramatic. And there are fights that we had where people telling us, well, you got to do this, and if you don't, we're going to fire you, kind of stuff. And us looking at each other and saying, no, we can't back down this time.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we get to our
Before we
head off to our dear host here, there's a fun thing we do. I thought you might like to have a look at what the cast looks like. We've got lots of cast photos in that book, and because you just grown to love these people and their voices and how they're drawn, but it is fun to see. And I think that an awful lot of them look an awful lot like their characters. So here we go. We're going to go through about a dozen other characters, and what I'd like you to do is clap for your favorites. Don't clap for ones you don't like, and then don't clap for ones you don't like. But
you can kind of clap.
We'll decide which character won at the end. But clap for your favorite. Everybody's got favorite X-Men, so clap for your favorites. To start off, this is Cal Dodd, our Wolverine. He is handing the first copy of the book to Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada, who is a super comics geek.
Yeah.
And since all the cast was Canadian, we called his office and he said, yes, I want the first copy of the book. So Wolverine and Jubilee took it up to
I didn't get to go, not that I'm bitter.
Okay, so now let's clap for our favorite X-Men. We'll start off with Norm Spencer as Cyclops. And Catherine Disher as Jean Grey. Allison Seeley Smith as Storm. George Buza as Beast. Chris Potter as Gambit. Allison Ford as Jubilee. We've got to double check. Ron Rubin as Morph. Cedric Smith as Professor X. Jennifer Dale as Mystique. Philip Aiken as Bishop. Lawrence Bain as Cable. That's what he looks. Yeah. And Adrian Huff as Nightcrawler. Lenore Zahn as Rogue. She's a state senator in real life, in Nova Scotia.
Yeah. Yes.
And last but not least, Cal Dodd is Wolverine. Okay, our unofficial tally is that Rogue and Wolverine tied.
Yeah. Seems to be right.
Storm was close.
Yeah, Storm was really close, yes. Yeah, the winner. Three-way tie.
Okay.
Also, just for the fun of it, Norm Spencer, I believe, is the thing we all hear in our heads when we hear previously on X-Men.
Yeah.
He was the one who did the voice on that.
Yeah.
Well, very good, you guys. I just have a couple of questions, just kind of get us started off, and then I do want to turn it over to you guys. Obviously, if you have any questions, there's not any microphones, so just make sure that you project to the point that we can hear you up here. So, as you said, you're not treating this property as if it was written for kids. You didn't, quote-unquote, dumb it down, and I think that is a big reason why it succeeded and continued as a lot of these kids aged up. Were you aware at the time that audiences were of multiple different age groups, or were you concerned about the people that were viewing it?
The executive class in Los Angeles is profoundly nervous about, you have to appeal to audiences 2 to 5. Oh, no, we're aiming for the 6 to 11 audience. They've got it down to just a couple of years, and they are specific about what they want to hit. It was, again, Margaret Lesh and the folks at Fox Kids who were trying to trying to get into the network universe, because Fox didn't exist until 1988, I think it was, and Fox Kids, I think 1990, trying to elbow their way into ABC, NBC, CBS. And so she was willing to try to appeal to the whole age group. No, executives do that.
Yeah, the people that pay for it, the advertisers and the people with the TV stations all over the country, they were looking at our scripts, at our serious adult scripts, and they were freaking out. And they just thought, oh my God, there goes my money for this season, because there's not going to be anybody under 12 that's going to be able to follow this stuff. It's just too confusing, it's too adult, and it's too dramatic and intense. And we just wanted to shake all those people and say, do you not remember being 7 years old? Do you not remember how you wanted something exciting and dramatic and intense, and that if your older brother or sister was watching something and loving it, you were inspired by that or intrigued by that? Whereas if it was something that you thought was way too young for you, you weren't going to bother. So we just kept thinking, we're going to write this for adults, for ourselves, but for kids that want a challenging story that they can aspire to and realize maybe when they're older that they only got half of it the first time they watched it, but that half was good enough. And it obviously worked, because we would get the ratings, and 2 to 5, 6 to 11, all the way through adult. Everybody was watching it, and it shocked our bosses, and it gratified us, and we said, see how right we are? And that lasted for about 3 or 4 years, and then everybody forgot that it was successful, and we went back to the normal way of doing business with it. But for the short time, we got to crow and say, yeah, we've got this figured out right. Have a look at X-Men.
Would you say that was at the time of the second season that you guys had a lot more freedom to do the things that you wanted?
Yes. Oh yeah. So we weren't fighting over anything. Just people really stepped back and stopped saying, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that. Then it got turned around to what can you try to do?
But if I can jump in on that point, the first season, Eric and Larry and all of us here, you were hired, anyone who was working on the show was hired for 13 episodes because they assumed it was going to crash and burn.
Yeah.
No one was signed on to participate any longer. So when you and Mark Ewing sat down to craft out the 13 stories that were going to be the X-Men series, you two came up with a strategy. Well, comic books tell stories over a period of time. Not every comic book is a self-contained story. So can we tell broader stories over a longer period of time by having the episodes, carry on a longer arc? And there was profound pushback on that, because the kids aren't going to remember what happened last week. It's too confusing.
Yeah.
But you guys were insistent on that.
Yeah, and Wilman really put his foot down. He's again the fourth of our team of 4 that were basically trying to run the show creatively. And he said, comic books do this. Really good television shows do this. They have continuing stories. We need to be able to do this. And so, to Margaret Lesch's credit, she said, we'll give it a try. We had teething problems of a number during the production of the animation for season. We were supposed to premiere in September, but Margaret said, we're not going to put this on the air until it's right. So she delayed 4 months, and we didn't properly premiere to January. And that was kind of weird. So that's one of the reasons they don't like to do animated shows one after the other, because if number 3 isn't right, it doesn't matter if 4, 5, and 6 are good. You can't show 4, 5, and 6 because 3 isn't ready yet. And that's why there's hesitation to that, and that's why so few animated shows do it. But we fought for it for the first couple seasons.
But to your point, Jeremy, after the first season and the success of it, I think you guys got marching orders, no more season-long arcs. We just can't do it. There's too many complications if something doesn't come back in right time to play for the next thing.
But we didn't want to hear that. So we said, we'll do 2-parters, and we'll do 4 or 5-parters like the Phoenix sagas. And what we did on the second season, we had that little thing, if you all remember, with Xavier and Magneto in the Savage Land, Lost. So we have a 2-parter to start the season, then we have 9 episodes where we have a completely different story going on with Beast or someone, and we cut back for a minute to see how Professor Xavier and Magneto were getting along. And they let us do that, because that was easy to make sure that was okay. So they let us do that, and that kind of connected.
Right.
The 13. So you had a 2-parter that set up why they were gone, you had them gone for 9, and then you had a 2-parter resolved getting them back. So again, it was kind of like a full 13 story.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to add was that when we were doing the first season, was that we weren't getting the quality that we wanted to get for the back then. The shows, all the new shows came out in September, and we weren't getting the quality we wanted to get. And Margaret, stood her ground and said, "Look, we want a good show. We want all the retakes to be put into the show." And she pushed the show way back to January. But at the same time, it was like at a cost because I think they had a lot of advertisers they had to rebate money to. It was thousands of dollars that she had to, you know, she had to take the burden of those charges and penalties and stuff. But Margaret was my boss way back in the mid '80s when she believed in the show and we did a pilot called Pride of the X-Men. Remember that? Yeah, that's something I'll never live down.
It wasn't your fault, Larry.
It was one of those things where the person with the person that was backing the pilot wanted these. He said, you know, Crocodile Dundee is cool. Can't you make Wolverine Australia? And I'm just shaking my head, going, you know, if we could just get a series out of this, we'll change him back. We'll just get rid of that Australian stuff, you know.
You're just predicting Hugh Jackman. It's okay.
But she believed in the show way back in those days, but we couldn't sell it. And so fast forward when she became the head of Fox Kids, she gave Will a call, gave me a call, gave the Lewalds a call, and we all said, okay, we're going to get the show on the air. And she's the main reason that it was greenlit. You know, without her, you would have never seen the X-Men because she had the power to say, yes, we're putting it on the air. She was really the hero behind all of this.
But you mentioned that too, that September is rolling around and Batman is going to be premiering at that point and all the other shows on Fox Kids, and X-Men's just not going to be ready. The first 4 episodes, 1, 2, and 4 were acceptable after a lot of retakes, but 3 was a complete animation disaster.
Yeah.
So Lemons Out of Lemonade, or reverse that, Lemonades Out of Lemon, said, okay, we will do a sneak peek for the kids and we'll sell a card of the pilot and the 2-part pilot. And then come January, well, hey, we're rolling out a brand new series when everybody else was in reruns.
Yeah.
And somehow that struck gold.
Beautifully. And so it was Halloween, and we thought, oh no, it's Halloween at 7 p.m. Oh, no, kids are going to be out trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
But enough people watched it that it was deemed a success. And then enough buzz started happening around the country in the Fox Kids Club that they begged to have it back on, and so they showed it again over Thanksgiving, the pilot, as a little sneak. And we've done a bunch of podcasts and talked to a bunch of fans, and there's this guy that says, you know, I was really bitter. I watched the pilot in October, I watched the pilot in November, and I'm waiting, I'm counting the days and crossing it off my calendar to see the next X-Men episode when it premiered in January. And so what does he see when he turns it on that Saturday morning? It's the same one again. He was angry that they replayed the pilot a third time.
But then they played 3 and 4.
4 or 5.
And it all worked out for him.
Yeah.
I am going to go ahead and turn this over to the audience for questions. I selfishly want to just keep talking to you guys about it. I want to propose a question, and I'm going to give you guys a minute to think about it while they're asking theirs. And take this how you want, but if you were a mutant from X-Men, from the Brotherhood, anybody that was featured in the show, which mutant would you be? And now that you've got that in your mind to stew on, I'm going to turn it over to you guys for some questions. Yes, in the back. That's you. Go on.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there a particular story arc or controversial topic that either you personally or you versus admin had the most difficulty with?
That actually made it onto the air? Because
Because there were a couple things that didn't make it on the air, but I mean, there's a real quick one that was kind of self-censored. After the first season, if you'll remember, Gene and Scott have said they're going to get married because I love them. They're going to get married. So we're going to start out the second season, they're married, and when Mark and I sat down to lay out the next 13 episodes, we thought, okay, they're married, and Jean's 7.5 months pregnant, and she's got a huge baby bump, and they're still running around fighting supervillains. And then we're going to see a double mutant child, maybe, the third episode in, and find out what happened to that. And we got these notes back from just about from Marvel, from every one of the people involved saying, oh, wait a minute. Remember, I mean, I know everybody's watching the show, but the core audience are 12, 13-year-old boys. Jean, 7.5 months pregnant, running around fighting supervillains, may not be our best choice.
In spandex.
In spandex, yeah.
And so we pulled that back. They ended up using them and having a new child later in the books, but that was about the only thing I remember pulling back. Usually they let us do pretty much anything we wanted, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, we had an episode with, I think, a religious episode with Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler.
And yeah, it was really, they allowed us to push the envelope, and the only restriction I had was like the placement of religious symbols. Other than that, we could just go do whatever we wanted.
I don't know if we could do that today. I've got to be honest. It
Yeah.
was a serious conversation about religion. It was not trying to convert people. It was a conversation about the philosophy of it. And I don't think you could do that today.
Yeah, it ends up with Wolverine kneeling in a church. You can't, I mean, we would get in so much trouble for that. And it came to me because I just opened it up, okay, I'd like to see Nightcrawler. We haven't used him. What's his core? Well, he's devout Christian. Well, okay. Well then, if we have him as a guest, we don't want him just flopping around and poofing and shooting at people and then not bring that up. We want that to be the core of the story.
Right.
And I thought, okay, well, who would be the person with the most gripes against the sweet-natured, devout Christian? That would be Wolverine. He's lived for 100 years. He's world-weary. He's seen too many nasty things in his life, and he can be bitter about stuff. So I had them going at each other, and when we first started doing the story, we were kind of tentative about how far we were pushing the God stuff with him, and we got an open out from the network, who are usually more censors. And the note was, oh no, you got to go further than this. Get rid of some of this action you've got. Make them talk about God more.
Yeah.
But to the credit of the story, that one did not get any kind of mail from irate family members.
We didn't. We were worried. We thought we'd get some, but I think everybody involved treated it with respect, and so I don't think there's any sense of irreverence in it whatsoever.
No, and I'm not particularly a religious person, but that really is a powerful episode. That's one of the favorites from the series.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. Back there with the hat on.
What kind of decision making went into like choosing which X-Men was to be like the regular cast, depending on into like the ones that were like like Nightcrawler was a guest star and Colossus was a guest star, and also sorry, I have a second question. If I was like Morph invented and included in both.
I can give you. I answer the more question really quick because back when if you remember the books, the character that did die in the beginning was a character called. It was an Indian character. Thunderbird, right. And so we were going to try and replicate that in the books, in the TV show. But now you think about it, we're going to create the first Native American superhero and kill him off in the first episode. It's like, not a good idea. So we went back and researched, and there was a character called Changeling that was in the issue 40 or 50, somewhere back there, where he was invented for one issue, and he was killed off. So I stylized the visual after him, and we couldn't use the name Changeling because that was a character in the Teen Titans, so it became Morph. That's where the name came from.
And that was, Eric, for you, essential in setting up the role of the X-Men was showing the stakes were real.
Yeah, our very first major battle with our censor, who was a wonderful woman and let us do all sorts of things. It was just thoughtful, the most thoughtful censor you could ever ask. But our first one was, I just wrote it, look, we have to show there's stakes involved in this. They're not playing it, it's fighting, and so we need to kill an X-Men in the first episode. So that's why it was going to be Thunder. In the first draft, it was Thunderbird, then it was Changeling, then it became Morph. But in any case, the whole purpose of that was, and he said, look, as long as you don't make a spectacle out of it, and I said, no, it's going to be about the grief of the rest of them. It's not going to be about him. And if you notice, he's killed off screen. That was a prerequisite. We couldn't show him actually get hit by the Sentinels. He's off screen, he's dead, and the second episode is basically the rest of the team coming to grips with that. And she let us do that, and that was huge.
Yeah, and having Wolverine punch Cyclops for real and not take him to his knees. We had to fight for that.
Yeah, that was the only time we ever have one of our guys punch another one of our guys, and it was because he was in such grief, and she understood that. But yeah, you had 2 questions. There was more than there was.
Yeah, the other one was like, how did y'all choose like which X-Men to choose?
Real quick, there was a bunch of people that had input in that first meeting. Marvel was there. Production company people were there, who can draw. Marvel was saying, who do we want to promote now? Like people like Jubilee and Gambit and Rogue were fairly popular at the time, where they hadn't been 5 years earlier. So certain people were put forward, and on the writing side, we were listening to all this, and we got all their suggestions. And it's interesting to look in the story of the documents. It's in the book, where we started out with a certain group of people that everyone could agree on. And then gradually, as we wrote, Beast was not one of them. Jean Grey was not necessarily one of the key leads.
Right. Professor X.
Professor X was going to be kind of in the background. It gives you an idea of people that weren't thought of that first day. Oh, these are central stories. As we wrote the first 13 stories, I and the writers found, well, we couldn't really tell the stories without Professor X. And there's something about Jean Grey where she's emotionally central to everybody. Everybody has a relationship with her in a way that they have with nobody else. So she was becoming larger in the stories. And in Beast, we put him in jail, like in the second or third episode, because we just thought he was going to be in two or three episodes, the first 13, and he was going to be minor. But every writer that was writing said, oh man, can't we put him in something else? He asserted himself. Beast's character made us use him and made us make him into a central character. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I just want to, I'm sure somebody probably mentioned or whatever, but I just want to say thank you for just my Saturday mornings, my DVD collection. Saying that as being a young African American male and not seeing a lot of like heroes that look like me, being able to see characters like Storm and Bishop and others being used and not looking like flake superhero, like having real character and having powers that made you respect that they were superheroes. Like Storm was a team leader of X-Men, and you showcased levels where she was a strong character and not just a sidekick. That was one of the problems I had with Fox movies, to be honest. Because she was team leader. So my question to you guys is like, and I love the writing. The writing was just phenomenal. As the guy said, question about like things that were controversial. Did you ever get any flack about character use in terms of like you just mentioned about Native American and what that go back with them? But what about additional character uses? Jubilee, Chinese American, and then you have Thunderbird, and then you got Storm, who's African and all that. So was there any more additional info about like having more diverse characters?
I think at the time we were going for we weren't basing it upon any racial quota. We were just going with the best characters for the episodes.
And the most distinct characters, the ones that are most different from each other. Because Gambit is nothing like
it was all about character.
Nothing like Wolverine, and Wolverine is nothing like Scott. And we didn't we make a joke. Well, we could have had Colossus, Wolverine, Cable, Bishop. We'd have like 6 big, rough, tough guys as the team, and you couldn't have told stories with those people because they're all way too similar. So we wanted the most diverse. Not even necessarily racially, it worked out racially and
you have Russian, you have
Chinese guy,
we just wanted for the most diverse cast we could possibly set, so that makes it easier for us to write stories.
Right, and we had very powerful, back in the 90s, we had very powerful female leads who could kick butt just as well as the men. Everybody were equal in the show.
And also the ones who struggle the most with their mutancy and their power. And the way that Rogue to me is just a tragic character for the ages. All she wanted was just to be able to touch and love someone. Whereas if she switched powers with Wolverine, she'd have been happy.
Yes, that's true.
And he would have been happy.
I did notice that somebody in the back over here may have had their hand up a moment ago.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Larry, having worked on Pride of the X-Men and X-Men the Animated Series, what was your preference, the belts and pouches or the classic costume?
The classic costumes, and it's mainly coming from an animation point of view, because animating all those damn pouches kills an animator. The less lines, the better.
All right, we got time for just a couple more. Yes, sir, in the red.
Basically the Sentinels. Basically, how'd you guys come up with them of having an evil group of like, government funded to try to fight the X-Men themselves? Because I mean, I understood that they were against mutants, but still, some of them were powerful enough to take some of them down.
Yeah, there were 2 or 3 really important. That was actually a fight we had with Marvel for a short time. Will Mineo, who's the person here that is most responsible for, he's not here, for the way the show went. Anyway, he came to us, came to the writer and said, look, you got to use the Sentinels for like 2 or 3 reasons as our main villain for the first season. And when we did, we got some nastiness from Marvel saying, oh, these are secondary villains. People like Magneto and Apocalypse, they're the important ones. What are you doing? And we said, no, you don't understand. It's animation, is not a comic book. In a comic book, Wolverine can rip apart whoever Wolverine wants to rip apart. In kids' animation, Wolverine can't touch anybody with his claws. But he can destroy a room full of Sentinels with his claws and take his frustrations out on them. So that was one reason for the Sentinels. And the other major one was we didn't want the first 13 to be good mutants versus bad mutants to set up a tone of what the world was. We wanted to be good mutants talking with bad mutants perhaps and watching the humans react to the fact of mutancy. We wanted the human-mutant tension. And there's nothing more emblematic of humans' reaction to mutants than building a 40-foot monster that's coming to take them and put them in a slave camp. And that's just like an embodiment of human fear of mutancy. So they were a perfect metaphor, and they were a perfect animatable opponent. And so there's no way we had like that was one of those weekends where are we going to have to redo this show because we found the perfect villains for the first season.
And
don't let this change.
It set it up real nice. And just so you know, Will and I, when we were both working on Pride of the X-Men. The Sentinels were our first choice to put into the show, but we got overridden that they wanted to sell lots of little characters, and so that's how we got Magneto and all of the, White Queen, all the rest of those guys. But we got overridden creatively. We couldn't. Last one. Oh, okay.
So a question and a statement. The first one is thanks for Pride of the X-Men. I know it gets a lot of flack, but 3 and 4 years old, I learned how to read because of the Claremont.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So like that has a very special place in my heart. So his question though is such a tiny thing. But I'm always curious because I've never seen it in comics. What was the design choice to give Jean Grey a ponytail in that? And also thank you for sticking Carol Danvers in the episode.
Oh, I love that one.
My first issue I ever read was the binary one when they set her on fire and set her off in space.
Right.
So that's really important.
No, the reason for the ponytail was more animation because we had these girls with these giant hairdos, and to give the animators a break, we gave her a ponytail so it's easy to animate. That's basically what it was.
I was always curious about
that. Yeah.
That's a great question. Thank you guys so much. Pick up a copy of the book, say what's up. Maybe you can get them to sign it for you. And we'll go through.
Yeah, and we have hats too. Bring you some X-Men hats. So.
And I want to be Storm.
Yeah. Yes.
What X-Men?
What X-Men? I forgot the Bishop. I'll go
Would I want to be? I think I want to be Beast.
Good answer. All right, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Mobcast Network.